Hello everyone and welcome to today's video. Today we're talking about the 2026 North Carolina Senate race where former Democratic Governor Roy Cooper is apparently leaning toward entering the North Carolina Senate race and a potential Trump showdown. So just for transparency here, I'm recording this video on Friday, July 11th. This will be coming out a few days later. If Cooper announced in the meantime from now till then, obviously I will not know about it at the time of this recording, but I will be doing a video in the future updating that. So if this news breaks, I will be doing that. But as of the time I'm recording this, he has not yet officially joined the race. But there are rumors that Roy Cooper, the former North Carolina Democratic governor, are getting close to him entering the race. The field is essentially frozen right now until Cooper and President Trump's daughter-in-law, Lara Trump, decide if they want to be their party's nominees. In their own way, they both have, quote, the right of first refusal in their party's primaries. Governor Cooper continues to strongly consider a run for the U.S. Senate and will decide in the coming weeks, said Morgan Jackson, Cooper's top political advisor. I'm considering it, Lara Trump said on her Fox News radio show on Monday. This is all kind of fresh in the past 24 hours for me, she said. North Carolina is my home state. It's where I was born and raised, and it made me the person I am today. So if you're unfamiliar with the backstory here, Republican incumbent Senator Tom Tillis made an announcement a few weeks ago now, or at the time you were seeing this, probably last week for me, that he would not be running again for a third term after him and President Trump were sparring on the One Big Beautiful Bill, and Tillis is voicing his disagreements and disgruntledness with the bill. He said, in Washington over the last few years, it's become increasingly evident that leaders who are willing to embrace bipartisanship, compromise, and demonstrate independent thinking are becoming an endangered species. Now, one longtime Senate Democratic donor told Axios they expect Cooper to hop in the race after Tillis' retirement. Even before his announcement, however, Democrats viewed North Carolina as their best opportunity to chip away at the GOP's 3-seat Senate majority in the 2026 midterms. Tillis had shown a willingness on a few issues to buck the president, feeding suspicions in the MAGA base that he wasn't on Team Trump, including in 2023 when the state party formally censured him. Lara Trump, a former RNC vice chair, could rely on the president to clear the field and avoid the messy GOP infighting from some of North Carolina's recent open statewide primaries. National and state Democrats would likely make it clear to any other potential candidates that if Cooper runs, they should exit the race. Former Representative for the Democrats Willie Nickel, who served for one term before Republicans redrew his seat before the 2024 election, announced his Senate bid in April. 3 freshman congressmen, Representatives Pat Harrigan, Tim Moore, and Brad Knott, could jump into the race on the Republican side if Lara Trump passed on it. So this is very big news if this does end up happening. The 2026 Senate race, which as the article mentioned, has been long thought of the Democrats' best pickup opportunity in 2026. And it depends, because Maine with Susan Collins, Maine is more of a Democratic state than North Carolina is, but this is the best pickup opportunity for Democrats at this point in time. With Tom Tillis not running, the Republicans do lose the factor of the incumbency. However, it is worth noting that Senator Tom Tillis was very unpopular among the MAGA wing of the Republican Party, which is a majority of the Republican primary. So even if Tillis did win the primary, there was a large percentage of the Republican Party that were not thrilled with Tillis, and enough of them may have stayed home that might have ended up costing him re-election anyway. So I actually think that Tillis being the Republican nominee gave the Republicans a smaller chance at winning this general election than Tillis being the nominee. But two things could be true at once. Just because I think whoever the Republicans nominate have a better chance of winning does not mean for sure that they are going to win. Right now, the Republicans have 2 people in the race, Don Brown, attorney, author, and candidate for the 8th District in 2024, and Andy Nielsen, a teacher assistant. 2 other Republicans, Brooks Agnew and Licia Subhatu, have filed paperwork to run. However, all eyes right now are on Lara Trump, the former co-chair of the RNC and daughter-in-law of President Donald Trump. If she were to enter this race, she would obviously have the endorsement of the president, of her father-in-law, and several Republicans have already come out and said they would not run in the primary if Lara Trump were to jump in. For instance, Pat Harrigan, whose name has been mentioned as a potential candidate, has already said he will not run if Lara Trump runs. In addition, Michael Whatley, the chair of the RNC who is considering a run, also said if Lara Trump runs, he will not run as well. So Lara Trump would essentially clear the field here if she were to enter this race, and she would likely not have to face a competitive Republican primary. Similarly, on the Democratic side, it's really Roy Cooper's race. If Roy Cooper decides to enter this race, we may see Willie Nichols stay in, we may see him drop out. We'll have to wait and see how that all goes. But either way, Roy Cooper would likely become the Democratic nominee without too much of a problem. U.S. Representative Don Davis from the 1st District has also recently publicly expressed interest in the last few days. He could potentially join this race too, but with Cooper running, I would imagine he would either not enter the race, and if he did, he wouldn't really have much of a strong chance at winning it, given how strong of a candidate that Roy Cooper is. If it really is dependent right now on if Lara Trump decides to get in, because I think on the Democratic side, Roy Cooper is going to jump in this race, and I think he's going to be the Democratic nominee without a doubt. Cooper, who's already clearing a lot of the field here, several Democrats, Mandy Cohen, Sarah Crawford, Rachel Hint, we have Michael Reagan, Deborah Ross, all of them have said they will not be running if Roy Cooper runs, which is very heavy inclination that he will be running. Jeff Jackson, the Attorney General of North Carolina, who's also thought of as a potential candidate earlier on in this cycle. I think he's more likely to run for Ted Budd's Senate seat in 2028. Personally, but he also said in a recent statement that he believes that Cooper is going to be entering the race pretty soon. So he kind of spilled the beans a little bit on that Cooper could be joining it, and he essentially endorsed Cooper if he does there. But regardless, this Senate race was going to be one of the closest in the country, but if it's Roy Cooper versus Lara Trump, I do believe this is going to be the closest Senate race in the United States. Now, this Senate race right now is listed from Inside Elections, Cook Political Report, and Sabado's Crystal Ball as a toss-up. Race to the White House currently has it listed as still Democrat. And it is true here that Roy Cooper, the former Democratic governor of North Carolina, who left office with pretty high approval rating numbers, he starts out as someone with very high name recognition in the state and gives the Democrats a pretty rare opportunity in the state of North Carolina at flipping a Republican Senate seat blue. And you may be wondering, well, why did I say that? Isn't North Carolina very close? It is. But the last time a Democrat actually won the Senate seat in North Carolina, you have to go back to 2008, where the late Senator Kay Hagan won by 8.5% against the Republican Dole. She, in 2014, running for a second term, narrowly lost to Tom Tillis by 1.6%. So coincidentally, the last time that a North Carolina senator was a Democrat is the same Senate seat that Tom Tillis holds that's now going to be up in 2026. So Kay Hagan's old seat could be the same Senate seat that ends up going Democratic in 2026. Tillis won a very close election by 1.6% in 2014, in large part due to third-party vote, with a third-party candidate getting 3.74%. In 2020, Tillis seemed to get lucky again, getting 1.7%, when the Democrat Cal Cunningham only got 46.94%, and this one, two third-party candidates got about 4.5%. So Tillis in both of his elections got under not even 50% of the vote, but under 49% of the vote, and the Democrat did not have a high enough percentage to win this race. Now, in 2022, we saw Ted Budd, the Republican, break 50% of the vote, getting 50.5%. The Democrat Sherry Beasley got 47.27% of the vote, and that third-party candidate got 1.37%. So you can see in recent elections here, North Carolina has been a lean Republican state at the Senate level. This is why when I see a lot of things online saying, well, this is going to be an automatic flip if Cooper were to run, I'm not 100% sold on that argument, because North Carolina has had a very consistent track record at the presidential and Senate level being a lean Republican state. It was in 2022 for Ted Budd, and even though Tom Tillis was unpopular in 2020 as well, he still won by 1.7%. At the presidential level, 2024, President Trump won the state against Kamala Harris by 3.2%. 2020, where Joe Biden won the election, Trump won it by 1.3%, but that is a lot more narrow. 2016, Trump won it by 3.7%. So that seems like, okay, well, Republicans do very well nationally for president and Senate in North Carolina. Should they be concerned? Well, yes, because in 2024, we saw Democrat Josh Stein defeat Republican Mark Robinson by 14.8%. Now, this was very much a special case, as Robinson had a very bad scandal hit him with a few months to go in the campaign, and there was no chance he was going to win this race. But Roy Cooper, who was elected back in 2016, won re-election in 2020 by 4.5% over the Republican force as a Democratic governor in North Carolina on that same ballot where Donald Trump won by 1.3%. So Cooper is shown in a 2020 presidential election year, Cooper won on the same ballot that a Republican president was elected and a Republican senator was elected. Now, I've said this a lot. Governor's races and Senate races are often very different. It's not always the same. For instance, we can look at the Senate elections with Larry Hogan in Maryland. Larry Hogan did much better than a typical Republican in Maryland in 2024, but still lost in the heavily Democratic state by 11.8%. But he did much better than usual. We can go back, I believe it was 2020, with Steve Bullock and Steve Daines in Montana. The former Democratic governor ran against the Republican senator and still lost by 10 points. He did much better than a generic Democrat did, but he still lost. But there is an exception to the rule here. 2018, Florida, still a very close competitive toss-up state at this time, but had not become the more Republican state we know of it today. Republican Governor Rick Scott decides to challenge Democratic Senator Bill Nelson. And on this one, the argument was on the flip side. Many were saying that Bill Nelson's an incumbent Democratic senator. 2018 is supposed to be a Democratic wave year. There's no way Rick Scott is going to beat Bill Nelson. At the time, one of the earliest videos I did on this channel, I started out in the 2018 midterms. I remember saying Rick Scott, I do believe, is going to narrowly win this race. I thought Florida was more of a trending Republican state at that time, and Rick Scott narrowly ended up winning. I think this is the most direct comparable to North Carolina in 2026, Florida in 2018, where a former governor or governor that's popular or even semi-popular like Rick Scott was at the time is capable of defeating an incumbent senator, but I think it's going to be very, very narrow. However, now Roy Cooper does not have to worry about that. He won a very close race in 2016 versus Republican Pat McCrory by 0.22%. And this is after McCrory was also not too popular going into the election. I believe there was a bill that he signed that a lot of people in North Carolina were not thrilled with at the time, and that opened the door to Cooper winning a very close race. But in 2020, he won re-election by 4.5%, a very sizable margin. What this all means for 2026, in my view, is that this is going to be a very competitive race in North Carolina. So much so that I am now calling it the most competitive race in the United States in 2026. Roy Cooper is going to get Democratic turnout for a Senate race that we have not seen in a very long time. I don't think the governor maps are going to be a direct comparison. I just don't think governor maps and Senate maps really translate that way. But we're going to see Senate turnout for Democrats in North Carolina we have not seen in a while. This is the first opportunity since 2008 where the Democrats could legitimately have a Democratic senator. And the Democrats are going to be very energized to get out and vote for him. While at the same time, many online are knocking the idea of Lara Trump being the Republican nominee and saying that would be a mistake. I actually disagree on that. I think Lara Trump being President Trump's daughter-in-law, it will look like that President Donald Trump is trying to hand his daughter-in-law a Senate seat, but as voters in North Carolina get to know Lara Trump, I think they're going to like her the same way they did with Ted Budd, and a lot of the same policies as Ted Budd, where he ended up winning by about 3 points. I think you're going to see something similar happen with Lara Trump on that one. So this race, I don't think is going to be a blowout for Cooper or for Trump. I think it's going to be a case of a very strong, formidable Republican going up against the strongest, most formidable Democrat in the state of North Carolina. What happens? I think this has the potential to be the most expensive Senate race in the history of United States elections, without a doubt. We're going to see national Democrats and Republicans, including possibly the president, come in and do rallies and campaign events in North Carolina, desperately trying to keep this race. And when everything is said and done, I think the margin of victory not only is going to be under 1% of the vote, I think the margin of victory, like with Florida in 2018, is going to be under 0.5% of the vote. I think it's going to be that close, and I do think Roy Cooper right now actually narrowly ends up flipping this seat. And the reason being, in large part, is everything is going right for the Democrats for this to be the possibility here, given the fact that North Carolina, in my view, is much more of a lean Republican state at the national level than a Democratic state. But the 2026 national environment is supposed to be a Democratic-friendly midterm year, and Roy Cooper is so uniquely strong of a Democratic candidate that if it was any other Democrat, if it was Willie Nickel, if it was Don Davis, even if it's Jeff Jackson, I have this race going tilt Republican for Lara Trump. But in this scenario, Roy Cooper as the Democrat, I think the Democrats narrowly win this race by under 0.5 percentage point and actually flip the seat from red to blue. Something that's very hard to imagine now, but after Election Day could make a ton of sense. And in large part, it's due to the fact that Cooper is an A-plus Senate recruit candidate when you look at the candidate quality metrics. Former popular governor with high approval ratings. Got reelected twice. Got reelected twice on the same ballot that President Trump won reelection, so voter turnout was high. Yes, Lara Trump being the Republican nominee, having the name Trump, would give higher voter turnout than a standard midterm year in all likelihood, but President Trump won't be in the top of the ballot to help out. Depending on how the president is doing with his approval ratings as well, this may make the margin of victory even greater for Roy Cooper if the president is having problems. So right now I have the race listed as still Democrat, under half a percentage point. I'm not sure I'm going to change from that rating, but we're going to have to wait and see how this all goes. This is going to be a very close Senate race no matter what, but the Democrats getting Roy Cooper to potentially run is perhaps the best they can do. The Democrats are landing top-tier candidate after top-tier candidate going into 2026, and Republicans right now are kind of playing catch-up in that category, but we'll have to wait and see how it all goes. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure to like and subscribe. Also, make sure to leave your thoughts and comments below about the Senate race. Who do you think will win? Who do you think the Democratic and Republican nominees will be? Do you think it'll be Cooper and Lara Trump, or do you think it'll be someone else? Make sure to leave that all down below. Thank you so much for watching. Hope to see you in a future video.